Southern California, in its early history, saw a search for gold, for land, and for the souls of men. In our nation's 200th year of freedom, we brought 140,000 strangers to our shores who sought to share in freedoms we consider universal. At Camp Pendleton, the ritual of Christian baptism gives testimony to the pregnant hope of a new life.
We are seeing a great human tragedy as untold numbers of Vietnamese flee the North Vietnamese onslaught. The United States has been doing and will continue to do its utmost to assist these people. I have directed that all available naval ships to stand off Indochina to do whatever is necessary to assist. We have appealed to the United Nations to use its moral influence to permit these innocent people to leave. I have directed that C-5A aircraft and other aircraft especially equipped to care for these orphans during the flight be sent to Saigon. I expect these flights to begin within the next 36 to 48 hours. These orphans will be flown to Travis Air Force Base in California and other bases on the West Coast and cared for in those locations.
No sooner had the Air Force's Military Airlift Command responded to President Ford's directive when tragedy struck. The first C-5 to leave Saigon with orphans was involved in a fatal crash. While 314 souls were aboard, more than half escaped. And along with the surviving flight crew were at Tan Son Nhut Airport the next day for airlift to the States. As the President said, this tragic event will not deter our resolve to aid the babies in this critical hour.
The aircraft commander told us that we were going to be picking up babies and we were going to take some stuff into Saigon. And when I really got the idea of what things were really going to be like is when the water bottles, milk cases, and the Pampers and everything started coming. And being a grandfather, I'm definitely associated with those things. So when they come, I knew exactly, what to expect. Being a traveling man, I'm often away from home quite a bit. But at least one thing I know for sure, that when I return off my trip, my family is going to be waiting for me. But I didn't see the same type of look in the eyes of these people that we were bringing, because they were being taken from the very roots to a completely new environment. We had information to get the passengers and baby on board and depart as soon as possible. After we got airborne, the people seemed to settle down somewhat. They realized they were off the ground and actually in the air and heading for a new destination. And everything seemed to be pretty calm, except for the babies. You had to get them out and check them over and make sure, run a checklist more or less on them and see if they need a little diaper change or if it was just afraid. There was no briefing as to how they actually take care of the babies, some type of guideline to tell you when to burp them and feed them. So we just had to rely on the old human resources and everything. Again, Mac Loadmaster, we kind of run into these type of things where we have to just take things for granted at a moment's notice and do what has to be done. Prior to landing at Clark, I remember it was a co-pilot or navigator that asked for the number of souls on board. It was completely taken out of the old aspect of just hauling cargo or hauling whatever Mac has to haul. When he mentioned the souls, it really brought the idea of meaning that small, old, no matter what, that these are actual people. Once we landed and I saw the volunteer help, things were really under control because they seemed to have things really set up for them.
The big thing was getting the people out, and we had absolutely no trouble doing it. Laura, what were you doing when the call for volunteers took place?
I was doing dishes. Ugh.
I think we were all doing our own thing, and I think the idea was to get here and respond quickly.
Yes, I think everyone dropped everything they were doing and just came right on out.
The word went out over the radio. We got thousands of phone calls. I think within the first hour, we had almost 3,000 people that had volunteered.
I was involved with first arrivals. There was so much sadness, joy, I don't know, tears, laughter, a mixture of emotions, I think. Most of all, wanting to help. I think everybody felt the same way. They wanted to help. They wanted to do something, anything that would help these people. Of course, with the children, it was, I don't know, some were crying, and you comforted them the best way you could. You asked if they were hungry. Some of them needed changes of clothes. Of course, everybody got changed, but some needed it right away. You know, they had gotten dirty on the way over. And you stayed with this child for your duration, say your 8 hours, if you worked the 8 hours, and then you changed shift. And the infants, you took an infant, you went to a mattress and you set it down and you changed it and you waited for medical help. The doctors came around and checked each child individually. And if your child had something wrong with it or needed medical attention, you took it back to the emergency room.
We're seeing mostly a lot of gastroenteritis, diarrhea, a little dehydration in the kids, but nothing very severe. Now, she was seen a couple of days ago, and she's on some medicine already, some Actifed. And I think mostly what we're going to have to do here is you're going to have to feed her just clear liquids, like sugar water or soda pop. And we don't want her to have any solid foods. Her lungs are clear, she has no pneumonia, she just has a virus. And she'll get better very shortly. I'm going to give you a little bit of medicine to help stop the diarrhea, okay? Just wait here a second.
After the first flight in response to the President's directive, the people at Clark reacted just as they had done almost 2 years before, when our prisoners of war were airlifted home. The same concern, involvement, personal sacrifice was in evidence. At every station in the airlift chain, wives, off-duty military and civilian workers, high school youngsters and their teachers, all exhibited a similar disposition to help. Next stop, Hickam Air Force Base, 8 long hours away.
Each of the 141 flights that brought the children in had a medical crew on board, which is a standard aerovac medical crew of 2 flight nurses and 3 medical corpsmen. As administrator of the Hickam Clinic, it was quite apparent to us that we were going to be involved in the baby lift and refugee programs. Just when we were going to be involved and how long we were going to be involved, we really didn't know. We found often that when children would get off the airplane, they wouldn't want to be separated from another child they were with. And we assumed for a while that they were brothers and sisters, but this wasn't always true. They had just become friends, and I think because of the trauma of what they'd been through, they didn't want to be separated. We solved many problems with the children that we thought were serious, but simply by getting an interpreter to help us out. One, I remember, had a young boy who nothing that we could do would stop him from crying. The doctors examined him, and he appeared to be very healthy. He didn't want anything to eat. He didn't want anything to drink. He didn't want to stand up. He didn't want to sit down. He didn't want to go to sleep. He didn't want to watch television. He didn't want a balloon. So we finally rounded up an interpreter. The interpreters were all quite busy. But we finally got an interpreter to come over and ask what the problem was. And he had been given a pair of shoes, and the shoes were about 2 sizes too small, and his feet hurt. So once he got this problem out and took his shoes off and got him a suitable pair of shoes, he was fine.
After a 4-hour rest stop at Hickam, it was on to the mainland, where the orphans would be processed for adoption.
These 2,000 Vietnamese orphans are all in the process of being adopted by American families. This is the least we can do, and we will do much, much more.
Yes, we in the Air Force would do much more. In Saigon, the tensions had reached a fever pitch. Families of American government and contract workers, and the workers themselves, those with official credentials, passports and the like, were processed and sent on their way to Tan Son Nhut Airport. This was to be the second wave in the increasing tempo of evacuation in the face of a rapidly deteriorating situation.
I fly for the 63rd Military Airlift Wing, Norton Air Force Base. During Operation New Life, I made 3 shuttles into Saigon. I know crew members who have flown as many as 7. And when we came into Saigon, they held us up, like I say, to about 15,000 feet, got us right over the field, and then said, cleared for approach, and you had to spiral all the way down. And you're hoping everybody's spiraling in the same direction. Once you were cleared for the approach, you were strictly on your own. You called the tower, and the tower was, he was a Vietnamese controller who was really quite good. He spoke pretty good English. He could just say, 141 on final, or turning final, you're clear for the landing. The 130 behind you is clear for the landing. And it was, you just had to really keep your eyes out of the cockpit and watch out for other airplanes, because I'd say every 15 seconds there was an airplane touching down on the ground. It was just incredible.
I've been in the Air Force for 18 and a half years. Over 14 of that as a loadmaster. Hauled just about everything we could haul on these airplanes. General cargo, nuclear cargo, rolling stock, paratroopers, you name it. Operation New Life was something different.